ridiculous and muddled thinking from this individual speaking about Charlie Kirk.
Like, his most ferocious male fans are so fucking gay for him. They're all crying out of their penises in my messages. You're so mean. You're a fucking fat. You have no morals. Charlie's dead.
Charlie Kirk, Assassination cheered on air. Why are Australia's elites normalising right-wing murder? Stay with us.
Bankrupt, and we need to talk about these sorts of intellectually bankrupt defenses for this murder, and where they're trying to minimize this into kind of just the background noise of life. Oh, well, somebody got shot, babies are dying in Gaza, somebody starved here, this sort of thing, you know. And how can you be mad about Charlie Kirk when all of these other things that we on the left are concerned about are happening? What that is doing, it is a conscious effort to minimize the horror of what happened so that it can happen again. This is what is being set up here. It is sinister. It is evil. The surface has been scratched. We see what's underneath it there.
I want to go on, Rita, to the way in which these people come out of these universities, come out of this kind of hard left indoctrination centres, and then go on to either become podcasters or work in politics or staffers. And this is the long march through the institutions. I'll be talking about that later. But have a listen to someone who is supposedly an influencer in Australia, Clementine Ford. She was a journalist for a while, probably still thinks she is. But have a listen to the level of not only, in my opinion, depravity, but kind of absolutely ridiculous and muddled thinking from this individual speaking about Charlie Kirk.
Like, his most ferocious male fans are so fucking gay for him. They're all crying out of their penises in my messages. You're so mean. You're a fucking fat. You have no morals. Charlie's dead. Off, losers. Just remember, he died doing what he loved, defending guns. He took a bullet for the cause, and according to Charlie Kirk, a few deaths a year from guns is a small price to pay to defend the Second Amendment. So what more could he possibly ask for? It's a tribute and legacy to the pointlessness of his life.
So, I mean, James, just reiterate what you said before, because she illustrates that very point. They attack the individual relentlessly. They try and paint him as some morally depraved person who gets what he wants. That's the trick of the left, to make kids feel their entire moral universe gets exploded. The new morality is, if you're of the left, then you can get away with doing whatever you want because you're attacking the evil rights.
Jumps in, no normal human being, no one with any sort of sense or rationality would look at that video and come out of it thinking Charlie Kirk is the depraved one. The depravity there is clear. That is just so loathsome, so absolutely vile. How you could be that full of hate?
Well, I'll play you let me play you another one. Here's another Australian influencer, so-called Abby Chatfield. This is before the assassination, but it's only a couple of weeks ago when she appeared on to be advocating.
She was.
There you go.
She was.
Have a listen.
Let's have a listen.
Americans, when are you going to do it? Why isn't it already done? Every day there's another happening, right? Awful for your country. Awful, right? Why don't we redirect this energy to something else? You know? There's all these incels that are going, oh my God, me. So they go and do, you know what would actually make people respect you a little bit and make people want to you? Is if you did it.
So this ridiculous woman, in fact, it turns out it was a hardcore leftist whose partner, it appears, was transitioning. This was no incel that committed this murder, allegedly. James, the sheer ridiculous notion of what she was saying, but more importantly, this endless calling for violence from young people of the left, even here in Australia, is sickening.
Pick up on something else, too? You know, like that mocking that both of those did of people who were supporters of Donald Trump or Charlie Kirk or whoever, the irony, the absolute irony. You know, you've got Abby Chatfield and, hello, Clementine Ford, these examples of normal humanity, going out there and attacking people on the right, conservatives, fans of Trump, fans of Charlie Kirk, fans of whomever, as being these, you know, weirdos and so on. I mean, I'm sorry. Put your average group of Charlie Kirk supporters next to your kind of purple-haired, pierced people who are all out there on the left here, and I'll tell you which side is the weird one. But let's put that aside. Let's put aside.
Let me be crystal clear about what is happening here. The Australian Broadcasting Corporation, a state-funded broadcaster that every Australian is forced to subsidise through their taxes, has just labelled Charlie Kirk a man who believes in the Constitution, free markets, and the right to self-defence as far-right. That label is not accidental. It is the same linguistic trick the BBC, The Guardian, The New York Times, and every other legacy outlet in the Anglosphere uses to put a target on your back. Once you are stamped far-right, you are no longer a citizen with rights. You are a problem that decent people may one day have to deal with. I have watched the same playbook in Britain when they smeared Brexit voters, in Germany when they smeared the AfD, in France when they smeared Le Pen. The vocabulary changes: populist, hard-right, alt-right, extremist, but the purpose is identical: to dehumanize, to isolate, and to legitimize violence against you. Zali Stegall, the so-called independent who ousted Tony Abbott in Warringah, liked a post that said political murder can be necessary. I have not seen a single front-page headline in the Sydney Morning Herald calling her an extremist. I have not seen The Guardian demand she be expelled from Parliament. Why? Because inside the Sydney-Canberra-Melbourne media corridor, liking a justification for murder is merely problematic when the victim is on the right. If a coalition MP had liked a post rationalising the assassination of a Green activist, the ABC would run rolling coverage for a week. The PM would be pressed to expel the MP, and every corporate sponsor in the country would be bullied into issuing sanctimonious press releases. The double standard is not a side effect, it is the entire point of the exercise. I have spent years in British universities, and I can tell you the same moral rot has already reached the UK. When Sir David Amess, MP, was stabbed to death by an Islamist in 2021, the BBC's first instinct was to warn against Islamophobia. When a teenage volunteer for the Scottish Family Party was beaten unconscious in Glasgow last month, Police Scotland classified it as minor assault. When a woman in Liverpool was arrested for silently praying outside an abortion clinic, the Crown Prosecution Service threw the book at her. Yet when trans activists smash windows at the University of Sussex, or when Just Stop Oil closed the M25, the same authorities shrug. Message is simple: left-wing violence is activism, right-wing speech is incitement. Marco Rubio has warned that foreign nationals who celebrate or rationalize political murder may be denied entry to the United States. Good. I want every British Labour MP who tweeted, well, Charlie Kirk was no angel, to face the same scrutiny. I want every SNP councillor who laughed at memes about him taking a bullet for the Second Amendment to be told at Heathrow, sorry, visa denied. The special relationship must cut both ways. If you cheer the assassination of a mainstream conservative, you are not welcome in the country that gave the world Madison, Hamilton, and the Bill of Rights. We should apply the same rule to the European Union. Let the German Greens, who compared Kirk to Goebbels, explain to Lufthansa why they cannot board their flight to LA. Clementine Ford and Abby Chatfield are not fringe outliers. They are the logical endpoint of what Australian universities have been teaching since the 1990s, that the West is illegitimate, that masculinity is toxic, that the nuclear family is oppression, and that any violence done in the name of social justice is heroic. I have read the syllabi. I have sat in the lectures. The long march through the institutions is complete. The foot soldiers are now the lecturers are now the HR managers are now the deplatformers. The reason Ford can gloat that Kirk's fans are crying out of their penises is that she has never faced a single consequence for dehumanizing half the population. She still gets columns in The Age, she still gets slots on the ABC, she still gets royalty checks from Netflix. The system is not broken, it is working exactly as designed. But here is what the left never expects: we are learning the rules of the game they invented. We are building our own platforms, our own podcasts, our own newsletters, our own payment processors. Every time they celebrate a murder, They send another 1,000 normies to Substack, Rumble, and Talk TV. I have seen it in my own analytics. When the BBC ran a hit piece on me last year, my YouTube channel doubled overnight. When The Guardian called me a right-wing shock jock, my mailing list grew by 42%. The British public are not stupid. They can smell the condescension. They can see the hypocrisy. And they are sick of being told that their love of Queen, country, and free speech makes them far right. The normalisation of political violence is the gravest threat to civilization since the 1930s. I say that without hyperbole. When a former journalist, like Barry Cassidy, a man who once sat in the parliamentary press gallery, can float the conspiracy that a radical conservative shot Charlie Kirk for not being radical enough, we are entering Weimar territory. Street brawls between the SA and KPD began with exactly the kind of rhetorical dehumanization we now see on TikTok. The difference is that today the paramilitaries wear black bloc instead of brown shirts, and their enablers sit in air-conditioned studios rather than beer halls. The ideology is the same. The other side is not merely wrong, it is illegitimate and must be silenced by any means necessary. I refuse to accept that future. I refuse to let Britain become another province of the woke empire where only one type of opinion is licensed. That is why I will keep platforming centre-right students who risk their grades to speak common sense. That is why I will keep defending the right of Israelis to live without rockets from Hamas or libels from the BBC. That is why I will keep calling out Stegall, Ford, Chatfield, and every other Minimau who thinks a liked post is harmless. Sunlight is indeed the best disinfectant, but sometimes you also need bleach. Next time some smug presenter on ABC or Channel 4 tells you words of violence, remember what they said when a real bullet hit a real husband and father. Remember who laughed. Remember who liked. And then remember to vote, to speak, to write, to pray, and to build, because the only thing that ever defeats the darkness is a candle in one hand and a ballot in the other. Charlie Kirk spent his short life defending those two things. The least I can do is finish the argument he started.